Welcome into the PFF NFL Daily. Today discussing the San Francisco 49ers and their quarterback situation here, Sam. We've got Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick of the draft. He's the starter right now for the 49ers, but we just got word today, Jimmy Garoppolo not necessarily out for the season. X-rays came back negative on the foot. 7 to 8 week return puts you right around the divisional playoffs. Thank you, 17 game schedule, giving us a chance maybe to see Garoppolo. So first off, what can we expect from the 49ers with Brock Purdy? And then we'll get into, maybe some Jimmy Garoppolo returning around playoff time.
And they didn't get Baker Mayfield, if that was ever on the cards. The Rams claimed Baker Mayfield with the number 4 waiver claim position as opposed to 24 where the 49ers were. So that was quite a way away from happening.
Reportedly, Niners did not put a waiver claim in at all. Niners didn't even go that far, so they didn't care.
It is an interesting conversation because it's like, can the 49ers win games with Brock Purdy? Well, we've already seen they can. They can beat pretty good teams. They just beat Miami with Brock Purdy coming in there and getting it done. But this is not what the goal is for the 49ers. They were a lot of people's Super Bowl favorite at this point in the season in the last couple of weeks with Jimmy Garoppolo quarterback. So now it becomes like, can Mr. Irrelevant win a Super Bowl with this team, or at least win enough games to keep them on track so that whenever Jimmy Garoppolo gets back, if that happens, he can then win a Super Bowl in a couple of games. And that becomes, I think, a tougher sell. Like, we've seen that pretty much any quarterback can come into this Kyle Shanahan offense and have success. Like Nick Mullins has the same yards per attempt figure for his career that Aaron Rodgers has. He was appearing on graphics with like Andrew Luck and, Kurt Warner and guys like that. But it doesn't translate to winning the same way that it does with Jimmy Garoppolo, who has one of the best win-loss records in NFL history. Something is lost between just the raw yardage production and getting the ball in the end zone, putting up points, and winning the games. And that is where I think you're going to have some problems once teams get a couple of weeks of tape on Brock Purdy and figure out, how they actually want to attack this guy as opposed to doing it on the fly on the sideline.
Yeah, Purdy's going to be an interesting one. He played, solid ball coming in for Jimmy G the other day. He's on the shorter side. He's not your prototypical looking quarterback. He doesn't have a great arm. And he had this upside down career at Iowa State that we talked about on the PFF NFL podcast the other day. It was better as a freshman and just kind of leveled off for a few years. Stylistically, too, I think, first off, let's just back up for a second. What a ridiculous year for the 49ers, right? Like, Jimmy G said bye. Trey Lance was the starter. Jimmy G never got traded. He came back and he's starting by week 3, coming in week 2. And now 49ers fans are praying that Jimmy G comes back for the playoffs, probably, unless Brock Purdy is spectacular. But Purdy's play style is going to be interesting because say what you want about Garoppolo, he's been such a good fit for Kyle Shanahan in that offense, even with his mistakes that he made a lot last year, turnover-worthy plays. Garoppolo's quick release and ability to just fly through progressions, get rid of the ball quickly, fits the Shanahan scheme really well. But Purdy has that thing we talked about with Kenny Pickett, average time to throw up around 2.93 seconds. In college, can we see this consistently down in Jimmy G's 2.4 range? It sounds insignificant on the surface, but that is a lifetime in the NFL getting rid of the ball quickly in this San Francisco scheme.
Which is where he was, interestingly, in that Miami game. 37 attempts, 40 dropbacks, average time to throw 2.48 seconds, which is right where they need him. Like, if he can stay in that area, that is absolutely operating within the frame of the offense. It's doing what you're supposed to. It's getting the ball out of your hands quickly. It's not lingering in the pocket for bad things to happen. The other element, of course, is we talked about the success that Shanahan has been able to have, at least statistically, with guys like Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard and, backup caliber quarterbacks. They've never had as good a supporting cast as they have right now. Like, all the weapons that they've added, all these matchup problems, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, Kyle Juszczyk, Brandon Ayuk. Like, they have so many of these talented playmakers now and an offensive line that's pretty good. Trent Williams is the best graded offensive lineman in the NFL now for the 3rd straight season. Like, it's a great situation for any quarterback to be in. Which can't help but give Brock Purdy like a shot at making something happen.
DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. It's my go-to when betting on the NFL this holiday season. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 on any NFL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. Check it out right Now, everyone can earn up to 100% boost with DraftKings stepped-up same-game parlays. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app, place a same-game parlay, and combine multiple bets like which team will win, player props, point totals, and more. The more legs you add, the bigger the boost, the bigger your shot to win big. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use code PFF. Place a $5 bet on any NFL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook with the code PFF. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. Yeah, so the supporting casting is great. I know you always like to reference Tin Cup for Kyle Shanahan and how he puts it all together. But you're right. I mean, this is the first time they've had everybody available. Debo's a little bit banged up, but it's good. They don't have to rely on him. He's not getting 15 or 18 carries a game and having to, play receiver and do everything that he did last year. Brandon Ayuk has been the guy some weeks. Other times you have George Kittle. We know what they have in Christian McCaffrey. I think the big thing for the Niners is to tap into those playmakers, Sam, right? You don't want to get too conservative and say, hey, we have the 7th round, rookie quarterback. We have to turtle up and run it more and, run, pass. I think Shanahan and the Niners' best bet and our friend Bobby Slowick, get those guys playing the same brand of ball because those playmakers will not be useful if you're playing conservative football if you're the 49ers.
By the way, the other quarterback worth talking about is they claimed Josh Johnson off the Denver practice squad. And again, like any quarterback plugged into a Kyle Shanahan offense is automatically like 50% more interesting than they would be in any random generic offense. And Josh Johnson is already an interesting quarterback for a variety of different reasons. Number one, he's got the longest like Wikipedia entry for teams that he's been on of any player I think I've ever seen in my life. The guy's just been everywhere. This is his 3rd or 4th stint with the 49ers over his NFL career. Number two, I think the last 2 times we've seen him on an NFL field, he's thrown for 300 yards, right? With the Ravens last year and with the Jets before that. Like last couple of games we've seen from him, he's been out there slinging it around. And then the third one, he was such a fascinating prospect coming out of college. He was with Jim Harbaugh back in San Diego. His final season, I mean, his total career stats were insane. 113 touchdowns, 15 interceptions, plus what he did on the ground as a rushing threat, another almost 2,000 yards and 20 touchdowns. His final year, though, was 43 touchdown passes and 1 interception. And the interception hit his receiver in the hands. Like one of the most absurd statistical seasons of all time. Now he's like 36 and, who knows what he has physically left. But again, you plug a guy like that who's got a good arm, is accurate enough, who's got athleticism, who's got all the experience in the world into a Kyle Shanahan offense with all of these playmakers and that supporting cast in the offensive line. What does that look like? I mean, that, obviously Brock Purdy is going to be the guy going forward, but if Purdy stinks for a couple of games, I'm kind of all here for seeing what Kyle Shanahan could do with Josh Johnson.
I think it's less than a couple games, though, right? If Purdy looks overwhelmed, for whatever reason, he didn't on Sunday in a big moment against the Dolphins. But if Purdy doesn't have it for a certain day or whatever, you put Johnson in immediately. That's what happened last year in that Jets game. He had to come in for Mike against the Colts, and he threw for 300 yards in relief. And by the way, not that it matters, it's Josh Johnson. He's been in every single system. But the Jets run essentially the Shanahan scheme, right? It's that whole tree and everything. So Johnson has experience in every offensive system except maybe the Patriots. So he's got opportunities. He's had opportunities to know these systems and everything. Josh Johnson does become an interesting name. He had a 76 grade in that game against Indy. And then the fact that he could go to Baltimore last year and start a game in week 16 and do pretty well too. It's very impressive that Josh Johnson is still around and usable, right? As this spot starter. So can the Niners stitch it all together between Purdy, Johnson? We haven't even mentioned the fact that this is the best defense they definitely had since 2019 when they went to the Super Bowl, but it's right up there caliber wise. You have a healthy Nick Bosa again. Can they do it? Can they keep it afloat? And then, maybe Jimmy G shows up for the divisional round.
Yeah, I mean, the other element is going to be, when if and when Jimmy G comes back, is he the same guy? Because one of the differences this year from previous years is that he wasn't making the same volume of those mistakes. He wasn't throwing the ball to the defense as much as he has in the past. He was playing a particularly clean brand of football for Jimmy G, which is part of the reason why San Francisco has been looking so good. And then obviously the final element of this is, what does their schedule look like? Home against Tampa Bay, on the road to Seattle, home against Washington, on the road to the Raiders, home against Arizona. Like, all 5 of those are perfectly winnable games for San Francisco. So I think they've got a shot of, I mean, they should make the playoffs from this point with Brock Purdy.
I was hearing that the other way. Those are all tough games. Tampa Bay, Seattle, Washington. Those are all tough games.
These are all like 500 teams.
Yeah, but you don't know what you're going to get from Purdy. So I think it's going to be Brock Purdy. I think he'll be okay. They'll create enough offense. The defense will be fine. The Niners will be okay. They'll keep it afloat, and maybe Jimmy G will show back up divisional round. Let us know what you think. What are the 49ers' chances this year?